The St. Louis Blues and the St. Louis Cardinals are two teams beloved by St. Louis sports fans, and they're also two teams trying to return to contention in their respective leagues, but are they on the right paths? Today, we've got our friends from Dealing the Cards on to talk about players, front offices, the future of sports in St. Louis, all that and more on this episode of Note News. All right, we got a special feature episode today. Alec and I are joined by our friends Josh and Andrew from Dealing the Cards. Before we get started, if you haven't already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, rate the podcast wherever you listen, and you can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Note News Pod. But in addition to that, you can follow Dealing the Cards. They do a ton of great coverage of the St. Louis Cardinals. They're also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. They're also on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Dealing the Cards. So go check them out. For those of you that may not know, that have found Note News on your own, Note News is actually an affiliate of Dealing the Cards. So shout out to the guys at Dealing the Cards for getting us started and for coming on today to talk Cardinals. How are y'all doing today?
Good. We're just laughing about how you're so much better about plugging your stuff at the beginning than we are. So doing pretty good today.
Yeah, pretty good. I was at a Blues night yesterday. I saw a Blues player throw out the first pitch, and I don't know who that was, so this is going to go great.
You'll learn in time.
In time, you will learn. By the end of today, you will be an expert on Blues hockey. You'll be a true fan. How was Blues night, by the way?
Oh, we lost. It was pretty bad. Jordan Walker homered, though, so that was fun. But, other than that, not much to write home about because we're not making the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, you know who did make the playoffs is my fantasy team, and I've got Bryce Miller, and so I was decently happy with his performance. So anyways, so the Blues and the Cardinals do seem to have like a lot in common when you really think about it, from sort of the state of the team today, maybe a little unfortunately so, to sort of the way each team is run by the front office. Even like the last championship for each team was pretty similar, sort of like I don't know, I guess you could call it like a Cinderella run for each team. Kind of unlikely the way it all happened. And for the Cardinals, it was obviously their 11th, and the Blues, it was their first, but still a lot of comparisons to draw. So why don't we get into it? Waste no time here. I figured we could start by sort of comparing the Blues and the Cardinals, the current team, sort of the way the team is currently constructed, the way the teams are currently performing. So both teams are sort of trying to return to contention via a retool, right? As opposed to like a full-blown rebuild. So I think what we'll do here is Alec and I can sort of paint a picture of how the Blues are, and Josh and Andrew, you guys can take the Cardinals. Does that sound good?
Great.
Cool. I mean, so last season, the Blues finished like right smack dab in the middle, right? Alec, it was like
16th of 32 teams.
Yeah, right in the middle. Do you guys think the Cardinals are sort of headed like right in a similar direction this season?
Yeah, it definitely feels like
basically
right.
500.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully they can go on a run here, but I don't know. I mean, when you see Dealing the Cards, the Cardinals optimists sort of turning on the Cardinals this season, it's a sad moment indeed. Alec, how would you characterize the Blues roster as currently constructed, sort of the mix up of young players and sort of how the team is currently constructed?
It was done so in a very weird way, although I think this offseason they went about addressing a lot of those, especially last season. There was some young hope on the team, some players you were excited about and some players waiting in the wings. But for the most part, there were a lot of like older players that weren't really contributing much and probably weren't really a fit with the team. They very much value their veteran leadership. We know that much in St. Louis. But then this offseason, they kind of went about sort of changing of the guard in a way, signing a couple young players, making a couple trades for young players, using arbitration rules to acquire some more talent that are under the age of 27. And the older players are mostly still around, although some of them, their contracts expired and moved on. There's some more coming off the books after this season. And then, of course, we just recently got the news of a veteran player Torrey Krug going on the injured list. He won't play for the entire season. So it does feel like there's been somewhat of a youth infusion here now because this team was really kind of stuck in limbo with players past their prime, but you know, they're so well liked by the organization that they had a hard time moving on.
Yeah, and really what bit them right was like the length of the contracts given out to some of those older players, and then the no move, no trade clauses really came back to get them. Andrew or Josh or both of you, how do you think that compares to sort of the Cardinals team as currently constructed, sort of the mix of young versus old players, sort of the contracts that are given to the players right now? How do the Blues compare to the Cardinals is sort of my question.
It almost kind of feels like the offseason the Blues just went through is kind of what the Cardinals are about to enter into, right? Like this year was a lot of weird veteran leadership baked in. Like you're relying on the Kyle Gibsons, the Lance Lynns, the Sonny Grays, the Paul Goldschmidts, Nolan Arenados, but you're also baking in Jordan Walker, Lars Newbar, Nolan Gorman, these guys taking steps forward. And so now you're kind of entering an offseason where you kind of had some disappointing years from your young players outside of a few names like Mason Wynn and Alec Burleson. You're probably going to see some of these veterans like a Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, obviously Brandon Crawford's gone, Matt Carpenter, like you're going to see a lot of those names kind of fade away a little bit. And so I don't know if there'll be as much the Cardinals acquiring young talent this offseason, unless maybe they make a couple shrewd moves here and there, but more so letting some of the young talent within the farm system and already on the roster kind of run with things. So obviously the context of how we've gotten here from the Cardinals organization side of things and where the Blues are at is different. But it kind of feels like this offseason the Blues just went through is eerily similar to what St. Louis should be going through. And also, obviously, there's that huge transition in the front office from the Blues perspective, or at least the plan of a transition, which I'm sure we'll talk about, which I think we're anticipating. We're about to get the same thing for the Cardinals this offseason. So, Andrew, anything else you'd add to that?
Yeah, I feel like this season was disappointing in a lot of ways. They didn't really set the ceiling very high and kind of made it so that they had to have a perfect run to even have a chance at playoff contention.
Yeah.
And when your veterans that are established and like future Hall of Famers like Goldschmidt, Arenado, they underperform as badly as they did, the team really just can't hold itself together. And it looked like for a little bit that was going to happen, that they were maybe going to make a run even without those guys performing as well as they could, but it just didn't end up working out. Now, the Blues, what I do know of the Blues is that they're a lot more direct and a lot more straightforward with their fans about what the plan is going forward. Mo is notoriously not that. And I don't think he's going to ever be that. So we can all speculate that the Cardinals are going to have a similar situation with the changing of the guard and the organization and all of that. But we're not really going to know until it actually happens, which unfortunately doesn't seem to be the case for hockey fans.
Yeah, maybe so. One other thing I want to do before we start to move on is talk about some of the biggest issues we see with these two teams. So like one that I'll point out that Alec and I have talked about on some previous episodes is the lack of like elite level scoring talent on the Blues. They've got a decent amount of secondary scoring. They had, what was it? Six players with 20 or more goals last season, which was a pretty solid number, but they're like lacking that 40, 50 goal scorer to really push them into contention. What's another big issue that you see with the Blues, Alec, whether it's the defense or something else?
Yeah, I think the defense is the other one. You could say special teams, but I think you can somewhat play around that, and there's hope there. The defense has been the issue for a while, and it hasn't been a strength of this team for several years now. It's a lot of, older players who maybe they're expecting more out of, or they're expecting to hold their own. And just the league right now is so infused with like speed and young talent all across, especially in our own division. There's a lot of young up and coming teams that play a lot faster and a lot harder than a lot of the Blues older players. And so the defense, I think, is the big one to point out, because it's been such a systemic thing. Like it feels like the Blues haven't had a solid defense in like 5 years or so.
Yeah. So I'll extend that question to you, Andrew. What do you think is like the biggest issue the Cardinals face? It can be scoring with runners in scoring position or anything like that. Maybe like a chronic issue, something beyond just this season's performance. Anything like that come to mind for you when you think about the Cardinals?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this season you can point to like 100 different things, including the runners in scoring position thing, which has just been historically bad. But I think it all stems down to the player development. And we saw yesterday with Cardinals assistant GM, Gary LaRocque, retiring, kind of a change coming. And I think some of these guys are starting to realize that their time is up. And the player development just hasn't been what it used to be, right? The Cardinals used to churn out random guys that could take them on a playoff run, like Pete Kozma could like be a playoff hero, and that's just not going to happen these days with a Cardinal team that's like developing or attempting to develop really talented players like Lars Nootbaar and Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. It's just not working out, right? So you're seeing guys go to other teams and do really well, and I think it's a little bit overblown. Like Dylan Carlson was like really hyped up for the first week he was with the Rays, and he's really fallen back down to earth. Like he's still not a great player, but you could have gotten more for him in return than a reliever. You really messed with his development in that area. Tyler O'Neill, again, had a really hot start in Boston, but again, has gotten like 5 IL stints since then. Randy Arozarena hasn't been great this year. Adolis Garcia had a great playoff run, but again, has been pretty bad. Like it's overblown, but it's fair, I think. The player development really needs to step it up. You have all these promising young players, and it's just not working out. And hopefully Mo and all of his other guys will make the change that they need to make, and the player development will get better, and these guys will pan out this time around.
Yeah. What about you, Josh? Anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, systemically, the player development thing's definitely got to be number one. And obviously, it's a huge development that Gary LaRocque is retiring. It also makes sense that Chaim Bloom, who's a guy that has been known around the game of baseball being top tier player development, is coming within the organization. And you see some different players within the Cardinals farm system this year take some leaps forward, like a Quinn Matthews, who's a 4th-round pick. And it's kind of a rubber arm, and you kind of just hope maybe he's a 5th starter one day. And now is a top 50 prospect in baseball within months. And is probably going to make his MLB debut early next year and could be a frontline starter. And it just makes sense to have Chaim Bloom around, who's maybe kind of tinkering with that a little bit. A few years ago, you saw Jeff Albert kind of come into the organization and make some hitting philosophy changes, and he was kind of running out of town by the fan base. But you saw Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, Jordan Walker, Alec Burleson, Lars Nootbaar come up, but then their development just kind of got stunted at some point. And so I think a lot of their issues can come down to player development, but I did think the point you guys made about the Blues not necessarily having elite goal scoring is an interesting trait the Cardinals have been missing. Like in the bullpen, you have an elite reliever in Ryan Helsley, but then starting rotation, like Sonny Gray's a tier below elite. He's not necessarily like a top end front of the line starter. I think he's a front line starter, but he's not like, I don't know, name whatever your favorite starting pitcher is today. Sonny Gray's not that. And then their lineup outside of, 2022, they got MVP seasons from Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. They had that amazing second half from Alec Burleson. But for the most part, since like 2013, they've really lacked. Actually, wait, what? Did I say Alec Burleson?
Yeah.
Oh, I meant Albert Pujols, not Albert Burleson. But maybe Albert Burleson is going to be Albert Pujols.
Yeah, Freudian slip, perhaps.
Freudian slip. So, like, really, since Pujols left St. Louis, they haven't had like a truly elite player for a long stretch of time, because like Nolan Arenado's stint in St. Louis has mostly been disappointing, at least relative to expectations. Paul Goldschmidt had one MVP year and has been an all-star a few times, but not necessarily a carry the offense good. So they have kind of lacked that star power that a lot of teams have. So they have a lot of good secondary pieces that can, in a lineup that has 2 MVP candidates like the Dodgers, if you have a Lars Nootbaar and Brendan Donovan around them, those guys are amplified in their impact. But when you're relying on those guys to be the center of your impact, it leaves a lot to be desired. So I think it's an interesting parallel between the Cardinals and the Blues.
For sure. Definitely an interesting one. Some of what you talked about there, specifically with Chaim Bloom potentially stepping in and taking over John Mozeliak's role, that brings us to our next topic, which is sort of front office and ownership. So with the issues in mind that we just pointed out with the Blues and the Cardinals, I think we should answer the question about whether or not we sort of have faith in each front office to address that issue. I think when considering this specific offseason for the Blues, there's been a lot of sort of faith revived, I think, in Doug Armstrong. It seemed like he was sort of losing the confidence of a lot of the Blues fan base until this offseason. He made some crafty moves, and seems to have given the team a solid chance to compete next year. So there's, I think a little bit of newfound faith in Doug Armstrong, but then also they came out, as you mentioned, they laid out a specific succession plan with Alexander Steen, the former player, taking over as GM in a couple seasons. Alec, do you have faith in sort of that regime of Doug Armstrong for the next couple seasons, and I guess for the few seasons after that when he steps back into probably some other role, and then from that point Alexander Steen and on? Do you sort of have faith in those two to address the issues that we talked about with the Blues?
Yeah, I mean, I am certainly very much have always been a Doug Armstrong defender. I think he has always been a top of the league caliber GM, and there have been some mistakes for sure. And I think even he is aware of that. He's very very willing to own up to his mistakes. But overall, I mean, the Blues have been a really powerful team for so many years now, all throughout the 2010s and beginning of the 2020s. They really had sustained success for so long, and I think that is to his credit. And yeah, I would say this offseason he did another great job, and also as you mentioned, with them preparing Alex Steen for this role, all of this, as we've talked about in previous episodes, all of this kind of just feels right, and you can tell that they have very much thought through every detail. They were prepared for every question. And it is going to be Steen's front office once Armstrong's contract is up. So yeah, I guess I would say I never really lost faith in our front office. Maybe when I should have, but I don't know. Winning a Stanley Cup is kind of a pretty big, you get a free pass for a couple years from me. So yeah, I do trust the front office, and I like the direction that our franchise is headed. Both on the ice, but also in the front office.
For sure. And what really seems to be a line of similarity between these two teams is like the overall philosophy of trying to be competitive, maybe not for like a championship every season, but trying to be competitive to get into the playoffs every season. That's sort of like a model that it seems like the Blues and the Cardinals have in common. Josh, so I'll extend the same question to you. Do you see do you have faith in sort of John Mozeliak being able to address these issues? Or, I know there's been a lot of talk of him stepping down. Should he, will he, a lot of those kind of questions raised, but there isn't a concrete succession plan, as you mentioned, like there is with the Blues. Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think at this point he hasn't really earned the opportunity to continue that, and I don't think it's in his plans, right? I don't think John Mozeliak wants to. If anything, I kind of think he would have been gone a while ago if it wasn't for the DeWitt's trust in him and their desire for him to be in that role for this amount of time. And honestly, I don't think what's being talked enough about in this front office transition is that I don't know how likely it is that someone just steps into John Mozeliak's role. In a lot of ways, I think we might be seeing a really big overhaul of how baseball operations functions in St. Louis. They have one of the smaller front offices in baseball. They have one of the smaller coaching staffs in baseball, one of the smallest player development teams in baseball. John Mozeliak wasn't always president of baseball operations, right? He used to be the GM, and he kind of rose to that role because in a lot of ways they wanted to build out a bigger organization, and for his role to be more 50,000 feet, overseeing someone who oversees player development, overseeing someone who oversees scouting, overseeing someone who sees the transactions through. And that kind of happened, but then COVID happened, and so he kind of took more control back because you needed a little bit more continuity, and then things started to fall apart a little bit. So I think he didn't really trust giving away authority, which is, I think this is all fair critiques of John Mozeliak. So even if I'm confident Chaim Bloom's kind of going to be the lead voice moving forward, I don't know if that means Chaim Bloom is president of baseball operations soon. Like, go take a look at the Orioles front office, go take a look at the Rays, the Guardians, teams like that have some of the better front offices in baseball. A lot of them have like a POBO or a chief executive officer, something like that. But then they have a lot of other guys who are in probably bigger roles than what Randy Flores or Michael Gersha, people like that are. And they kind of own their own things while someone oversees something else, or they have more of a collaborative front office. And I think what we might move toward soon is instead of maybe like a one overarching voice, like there is a guy that kind of has the final authority, and that's probably Chaim Bloom, but it's a collaboration with Randy Flores, a collaboration with Michael Gersh, a collaboration with whoever it is. Like, honestly, Heimblum might be the next player development guy, but then have a little bit more authority than that. So to answer your question about do I have confidence in John Mozeliak to finish it, no, at this point I don't, because he's had enough time to prove it, and I also don't think he wants to be here beyond 2025, and I think this is more than a 1-year overhaul. So what I had confidence in this past offseason was that the moves they made could get them into a playoff spot again, which they're going to be close, even if the rest of the season goes poorly. They almost got there, but it didn't work out. I didn't have confidence that John Mozeliak was going to build us back into a World Series contender, though. So maybe Andrew disagrees on that, but long-term about this organization getting back to the heights it needs to, there needs to be new leadership. But this past offseason, I was convinced that they could at least contend again, and they almost got there, but it was kind of too little too late.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's kind of where we both stand on it. I was hoping you were going to praise him for like 2015, though, and then I was going to press the button. Because we haven't, I don't think you guys have that toy on Note News, but
not yet.
Doug's water.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I think I trust Mo to like, I don't know. I don't think I trust Mo very much at all. I trust him to like step down after 2025, and that's about it. I don't know if it's going to be Heimblum. I hope the DeWitts are not tone deaf enough to like promote Michael Gersh to that role. And just like that would just be terrible if they had another internal hire, because clearly this organization needs a refresh top to bottom. And to get back into playoff contention, you need an infusion of young talent, and you need to be able to spend correctly. And I think this organization has done neither of those well in the last couple of years, right? Like, you can make the argument that they've made better signings recently, like Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn did their job. They did what they were supposed to do. Sonny Gray has been fine. Wilson Contreras is one of the better signings of last offseason. But if you look at this history of what Mo has done with spending money, he brought in guys like Brett Cecil and Andrew Miller and Greg Holland, and just horrible contracts like Dexter Fowler. You can just keep naming guys that he brought in that were kind of in that middle tier. And you see other teams like the Royals, like consistently like hitting success, and like the Rays, like the Royals this year, I'm probably not like years past, but the Rays have done a really good job signing players. The Dodgers always do a good job signing players. They also get way too much money to play with, but like there's other teams that do it a lot better than you, and you're left scraping out of like the Dexter Fowler section of the aisle, and it's like, it's not going to help you, right? If you overpay for Dexter Fowler or Steven Matz, you're not going to be a winning team. And the Cardinals have one of the most expensive rotations in all of baseball, and it's a rotation full of Miles Mikolas and Steven Matz and Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, and Sonny Gray is probably the highest upside guy. But even right now, like seeing, like, I don't know, he's had a weird season. Josh will probably disagree with me on Sonny Gray, but I feel like at this point, his ceiling is like a number 2 starter going forward. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I don't have faith in the organization as currently constructed. No.
Would you have a little more optimism if like a Heimblum steps in, or
but we just haven't heard anything about it. I'm not taking Heimblum for granted right now, because he could be. I think we defer a little bit on this. Like I know a lot of the media is like pretty certain that Heimblum will move into a role, but Mo is so cagey with what he does that like I don't know if Heim's going to step into a bigger role or not. Like he could go to a different organization next year for all we know. Like Yadier Molina was supposed to report to spring training, and I haven't seen him a single time this year. So you know.
Yeah, well, very few people like Yadi can just step away from a baseball season to go watch his basketball team play. He's a special character, so I don't know if I'm Bloom with Yadi, but I do think there's a little bit of a, like the Gary LaRocque thing just now happening, I think is a really good sign that some change is about to come, because I don't think, especially in the middle of a playoff chase, because they're, at least they see themselves in a playoff chase. I don't. They're not. I don't think they're in the middle of that. Be like, hey, also, by the way, Mo is going to step into a different role. Like that's just, it doesn't help with the energy of trying to win right now. I think that kind of stuff is just not going to be revealed to this offseason. But to Andrew's point, I don't blame people for having skepticism that change is going to happen, because until you see it, it's like, well, there's always a chance it doesn't happen. But again, I do think the Gary LaRocque thing already being announced, it's like, okay, I think this is one of many steps to come. But yeah, we have to see it happen first and then evaluate from there. Because just because they make change doesn't mean it's the right change either. They could bring in an outside voice that's like it's not like every outside voice will be the better fit. So there's directions they could go that we're like, oh man, this is bad in just a different way.
Yeah.
What if they brought you in, Josh? Would you do a better job?
Probably not. I would have given Tyler O'Neill like a 10-year contract after his MVP season. So I would have
just resign and make Kareem the player development head.
Great.
Y'all want to talk about that just a little bit? We're about to shift to talk about some like players of the future. Do you want to tell the people listening or watching some of the exciting things going on in the deal in the cards world right now?
Yeah, so recently we just started a prospect podcast, Birds on the Farm, with you guys maybe have seen Kareem. His Twitter handles Kareem Season over on Twitter. Just probably one of the best out there right now in terms of digesting and analysis and giving analysis to Cardinals prospects. And so not just the big names like Quinn Matthews, JJ, Weatherholt, guys like that, but he's also on the lower end guys that you never heard of, but maybe become some of the next key contributors. And so we had our first episode with him go live this last week. Sandy, who isn't with us today, will co-host that typically with him, but it's a great place to find. There's some other Cardinal prospect podcasts out there. They're a little like there's not as many of those though, and so I'm really excited for what Kareem's going to bring to that.
Yeah, tuned in, listened to that first episode. It was awesome. I want to get everyone's thoughts on like the idea of a rebuild versus a retool. Because it seems like that's what both the Blues and the Cardinals are sort of juggling with right now, or I guess dealing with, is they're both trying to make a retool work as opposed to going full scale rebuild, right? I guess we'll start with you, Alec. What is it like in terms of hockey and the Blues in particular? Do you think this retool will work? Do you think it might take something like more all in, like a rebuild, riding the ship into the ground? What are your thoughts there?
I think in hockey, it's a bit of a different situation because you can more easily do a retool. Generally, you don't sign players to as long a term as in MLB. And also the prospect timeline is somewhat more significantly shorter than an MLB. Like you draft a player, you might not see him for 5 years, and that's like average. You would expect an NHL player to get to, or an NHL prospect to get to the NHL within that time. So them going through this retool while also still having had some pretty promising drafts in the past couple of years does, I think, set them up pretty well. And additionally, them trying to the way that they are going about moving around this money is very shrewd. So I would say it's a tentatively promising future, because obviously nothing is ever given. You can't just assume that your good prospects are going to be good players. You can't just assume that you're going to be able to, whatever. But I would say they're going about it in the right way, and I think it was the right choice to retool, because even if they were to rebuild, there really isn't a whole lot that they can do. Their best players, Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, are locked up for 6, 7, 8 years, and that's really hard money to move. So either you eat the salary, and in that case, you're really not getting a whole lot in return anyways, or you lose your best players somehow and like someone takes on that contract. And then now you're just kind of left with, a draft pick you'll see in 5 years. So the way they've gone about it, I think, was the right decision, because I think a rebuild would be so much more difficult with this team, versus like a team just dearth of talent that, is kind of forced to go through a rebuild. They're already kind of on that timeline of being bad to get good. The Blues are still kind of somewhere in the middle, so they would have to go even further down before they could even bottom out. So yeah.
What about you, Andrew? Do you think the Cardinals have sort of the roster and the farm right now to make a sort of retool successful, or do you think it might take like selling everything and starting from scratch?
Yeah, I think they definitely have the young bats that they need to be successful in the future. Like Nolan Gorman's very promising, Lars Nootbaar's very promising, and you got Jordan Walker, who could be a legitimate star. None of these guys have panned out, obviously, but it doesn't really make sense to go through a rebuild. Rebuilds are for teams like the Nationals back in the day, where they had Trey Turner and Juan Soto and Max Scherzer and all these like top name players, but they just weren't a good team because they didn't have the supporting cast around them to be a good team. Like the Cubs with Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant and Javier Baez, and like they had top names, and we just don't really have that right now. Paul Goldschmidt's about to walk in free agency, and he has no value. Nolan Arenado has no value. So if you're going to think about a rebuild, probably the most valuable pieces you're going to trade are like Ryan Helsley, who could probably get you a lot, but he only has 1 year left. And like Wilson Contreras maybe, or Sonny Gray are guys that would probably go in a rebuild, but it doesn't really make sense to part with those guys. They're not like the premier names. They're probably not going to get as much back for them as they are worth to you. And the young guys seem ready. Like Mason Wynn looks like he's ready to take the next step and be a star. And Jordan Walker, if he ever pans out, he's looked better in the last couple days, but small sample size, you never know. Alec Burleson looks like he's really promising. And if you can fix your player development, if you can get Nolan Gorman right, if you can get Lars Nootbaar to stop being hurt and be more consistent, if you get Brendan Donovan to take that next step, it's possible. You can talk me into them being a contender in a couple of years if they use the Goldschmidt money to go out and get a star. If you spend wisely, you can convince me that this team can be really good once the Tink Hences and the Quinn Matthews come up and supplement that rotation. Then I think you have a lot more complete of a team that's homegrown, and you don't have to go all out like the Phillies or the Mets do and just supplement a really bad farm system by spending on everybody.
Yeah, that's fair. Josh, what are your thoughts on that? And then also sort of to pair with that question, who are some of the names that haven't quite cracked the big league roster yet for the Cardinals that you really like?
Yeah, in terms of rebuild versus retool, I think one of the things about rebuilds that people don't always talk enough about is it's like, sure, you could turn into the Cubs or the Astros rebuilds that have happened, or you're the Pirates and you're 20 years rebuilding, or the Phillies went a decade between 2011 and 2021 without making the playoffs again. And like we're talking about them and how much they spend and how exciting they are right now, but like for a decade, it was not like that. And they really like some of the building they did helped. Like they did get the Aaron Nola and they made a Zach Wheeler trade that was helpful during that time, but most of those years were kind of regressing. And so going into a full scale rebuild doesn't guarantee you some kind of World Series contender later. And even if it kind of works, you can turn into the Blue Jays, or you make the playoffs a couple of years and everyone's like, oh, the next year you're going to make the step. And then like the very next year or 2 years later,
the White Sox made the playoffs twice.
Yeah. It's like both those teams ends up potentially selling and doing stuff like that. So like, it's never a guarantee by any means if you do that kind of thing. So I think a retool is definitely something that a team like the Cardinals can consider. You saw the Kansas City Royals do that well this last offseason. You saw the Boston Red Sox do that well this last offseason. So also think to Andrew's point, young talent is around. So you don't necessarily like you're not an old team that really needs to like you need some young stars to arise, but you have young players that can help out. In terms of people who haven't cracked the big league roster yet, I'd say like two in the immediate future are going to be the Quinn Matthews next year. Really seems like he could potentially be an opening day rotation guy at this point, but if not, pretty quickly into the season and have the upside that really none of the other Cardinals starters have right now outside of Sonny Gray. And then like a Thomas JC is someone who seems like he's knocking on the door of a big league call-up, whether it's now or the beginning of next year. And then depending on the durability, Tink Hence, I think we'll have a chance next year too. But he didn't quite hit the innings they wanted this year. So it'll be interesting to see if he's more of a 2026 guy instead of 2025. But wouldn't be shocked to see him take a bullpen role next year or get some starts.
Yeah, for sure. Andrew, what are some names in the Cardinals farm that you're excited about? And do you like just give me some names that you feel confident about sort of maybe having an impact in St. Louis in particular?
I mean, we're talking about Cardinals player development, so I can't say I'm necessarily confident in any of these guys to pan out because look at what they did to Dylan Carlson, who was a top 15 prospect, right? I don't know. I think JJ Weatherholt seems very promising in the lower minors. I don't expect him to come up in the next year or two, but I feel like down the stretch he could be a really good contributor and be one of the faces of the franchise. Quinn Matthews, obviously, Tink Hence are guys that I'm excited about. Yeah, just the pitching side seems really exciting with Chaim Bloom kind of in there. Like you never know what you're really going to get. He developed, or he didn't develop, but he found Ryan Fernandez on Rule 5. He found Andrew Kittredge. A couple of other guys maybe haven't panned out as much, but they're still intriguing names. And I'm just excited what he's going to do with the pitching here in St. Louis. But yeah, do I have faith in the Cardinals to develop these guys? Do I have faith that JJ Weatherholt isn't going to turn into Dylan Carlson? Not really. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm not removing it from the set of outcomes.
Yeah, it's not a sure thing that they'll pan out as much as it would have been maybe sometimes in the past. I know if Sandy were here, he'd probably mention Michael McDreamy. I know that's a name that he likes. Yeah, Gordon Graceffo.
Why?
So
yeah, Gordon Graceffo is like Hunter Brown. Like he could be like a really promising starter.
Sandy is like as much as crap as I get for being like a Cardinal homer. Sandy like is the prospect homer to the T. It's like he could be the 30th ranked prospect in the system. He's like, I think they could be Trey Turner. It's like, okay, we'll see that.
Yeah, we'll see. Alec, what are some names that you're excited about in the Blues system in particular? I know you love Jake Neighbors. He threw out the first pitch at Blues night last night. We just got Dylan Holloway from the Oilers, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, on an offer sheet, as well as Philip Broberg. And then there's also some exciting names like Dalibor Dvorsky, Jimmy Snuggerud. So what are some names that you really like in the Blues system? And do you think that we have sort of the talent in the system to address some of those issues that we talked about, like elite level scoring, defense, and special teams?
So you're not going to let me talk about Juan Bin Cho? So I would say I think there's some really, really promising forwards in our prospect pool. Snuggerud's probably the first guy you name. He was selected, I think, 22nd overall, maybe 23rd. So first round pick, and really like on draft night, it seemed like we probably got good value, as in like he maybe should have been selected like 15th or so. But now he's turning out to be one of the best prospects in that entire draft so far, outside of like, the top 5 to 7, whatever guys. It seems like the Blues really got a steal in Snuggerud. Now, he declared he wanted to return to Minnesota this season. I would love to see him play in the Blues team this year. I did say in our bold predictions episode that he would, but there's a reason that is the bold predictions episode. So it's unlikely.
We never get bold predictions wrong here. Now, come on.
No. We can't wait to see how these receipts are going to turn out. But Snuggerud's a really exciting prospect. He's got a super great release. His shot is just so good. He's got good speed on it, and he skates fast too. You hope his defensive game can come along, but definitely an offensive threat as a prospect. The other one too is Dalibor Dvorsky. I can't believe that we got this player. He was selected 10th overall, kind of as the result of our 2023 season, where we were just atrociously bad. It seems like everything went wrong. Might sound familiar to Cardinals fans out there. But so our JJ Weatherholt is a Czech center named Dalibor Dvorsky, and yeah, he's really exciting. I guess I seem to be higher on him than consensus, so maybe I'm the prospect homer, but I don't know. I think he's got a really nice two-way game, and I think he's got a really creative offensive toolkit. We'll see how good his goal scoring ability can come along, but I really like his ability to profile as a productive two-way center. And yeah, other than that, the young players on the team that we have now, there's some nice guys. Jake Neighbors obviously is my everything. He's going to be great, and no one will tell me otherwise. Scored a bunch of goals last year. Looks promising. His shooting will probably come down, but you hope he can remain productive, and I think he will. Really kind of came out of nowhere. And then, yeah, those are kind of the forwards to look out for. I guess in the defensive pool, there are kind of a lot of dart throws. I don't know that I really love how any of them are likely to turn out, but there's always a chance. I don't know. I kind of liked Lindstein. Maybe it was just this offseason. He really impressed in all the like prospect, play-alongs or in international play. I think he'll make the team, and I think he'll be solid. But still, they are missing that true high end, or even like, not even like top 10 defensemen, like top like 25 defensemen. I don't really know if they have a player of that caliber in their system right now. But I think the scoring talent should be there for our young players. hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Seems like defense in particular might have to be something they supplement with, free agency or the trade market or something like that. Any last thoughts on the Blues or the Cardinals? As you know, the team is currently constructed, the team's future. Anybody got anything before we move on?
If Sandy was here, he would glaze Ian Bedell. That's it.
Oh man, it'll just be interesting, in my opinion, to see like how do both of these transition plans work, right? Because whatever the Cardinals come up with, like everyone loves to say they have a good transition plan, but then when the rubber meets the road, the actual transfer of power and stuff isn't always that easy, and it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of humility. And so, it'll be interesting to see on the Doug Armstrong side of it how it looks at the Blues, and then the John Mozeliak side of it what happens in St. Louis, or well, I guess they're both in St. Louis, but with the Cardinals. So yeah, it'll be really interesting that both of the major organizations in St. Louis right now are both going through a significant change of power.
Yeah, hopefully, some bright futures ahead for both these teams. So before we move to our more fun segment of the episode, why don't we hit the people listening with some plugs right before we shift to that to that kind of stuff rather. Josh and Andrew, where can everyone find what you guys do at Deal on the Cards or maybe on Redbird Rants, anything like that?
Yeah, you can check us out on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get audio, listen to podcasts, Deal on the Cards. The new prospect Birds on the Farm is also on the Deal on the Cards channel or feed, so you don't have to go searching for that specifically. And then Twitter at Deal on the Cards. And then also both of us do writing for Redbird Rants as well. So a lot of the stuff we talk about on there or on a podcast goes on the site. A lot of the stuff we do on the site will go on the podcast too. So I know Cardinal fans and I'm sure Blues fans are like this too, like to digest as much content as possible. So be sure to check both out.
For sure. Yeah. And you can find Note News, as I mentioned at the top, on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. And then, of course, we're also on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I figured since you guys, Josh and Andrew, aren't, big hockey fans, I think one of the best ways to get you guys into it is for you guys to pick a favorite player. All right. Okay. So we'll start with Andrew because I already know what he likes. Andrew is a big two-way players fan. He loves Shohei Ohtani. Why don't you speak a little bit to that, Andrew? What is it about these two-way players that gets you so excited?
Well, when I was younger, I always liked since I always watched the National League team, I always liked seeing the pitchers back because I thought it was funny. And every once in a while, pitchers would get a hit or hit a home run, and that would be the most exciting thing ever. So in 2018, I heard about this Japanese kid, Shohei Ohtani, who was coming over, and he can pitch and hit. I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And then he signed with an American League team, and I never got to see him pitch and hit in the same game because they would always DH for him. But then when he broke out in 2021, they would let him pitch and hit at the same time, and I would get to see a pitcher batting second or third every day, and I thought that was pretty exciting. So now here we are. He's turned into the best player in the world somehow. So there we go.
It's pretty cool. I mean, so in hockey we have two-way players too, and I think they're a lot more common. But in hockey, it's a player that has good game defensively and offensively. Alec, what are some names on the Blues that Andrew might like that you want to highlight?
The best is definitely Robert Thomas, and Robert Thomas is like one of the young burgeoning stars in the league. Really kind of made a name for himself in the last couple of years, and now is just offensively and defensively so solid. Solid defensively, and then offensively, he's great winning faceoffs, one of the best passers in the league, in my opinion, the best passer in the league, but definitely a homer pick there. Yeah, I mean, he's so fun to watch, so creative every night, and responsible defensively. Otherwise, Pavel Buchnevich is another good defensive forward. The Blues always need a Russian sniper, and they exchanged the guard when they acquired Buchnevich and traded away Tarasenko. And he's really solid defensively too. He's responsible, and he uses that to his advantage to steal a puck or block a intercept a passing lane, block a shot, do whatever, and then box out the oncoming skater or do whatever to have his teammate or himself skate the puck out of the net. And then the other one for me that I personally like is Texier. Actually, I think he's pretty good defensively, but I've watched a lot of Blue Jackets hockey, and kind of a new addition that might not be around for a while. So I'd say Buchnevich and Thomas are probably the go-to guys. They'll be top lines or top six. They'll be top liners.
Yeah, I think the truest like spirit of the two-way player in baseball that you'd find in hockey is when a goalie scores a goal,
which has happened.
Which has happened, but it's only happened 17 times in NHL history by 14 goalies. So Andrew, until that happens,
pretty good two-way player number though. So that's
oh my gosh. Then Andrew, until that happens, until Jordan Binnington scores a goal this season, or whenever it happens, until then, you've got some names there: Robert Thomas, Pavel Buchnevich, and Alexander Texier.
If you do want goalies who score points, which a point is you either get a goal or an assist, and an assist is like the last two people to touch the puck before, if they're on your team, before the goal is scored. Jordan Binnington was second in the league for goalie points last year with 3 goalie points,
cool.
tied with 4 others, only behind Markstrom's 5 goalie points. So we have a two-way goalie, I guess.
Like when they have they pull the other goalie out and they just like shoot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They just have to like launch it like over everyone's heads and then like hope it just sort of slides in. It's always very exciting. Josh, what are the types of players that you like? Maybe some names on the Cardinals that are some favorite players for you.
I feel like over the years, it's like the Brendan Donovan, the Skip Schumacher types where I like versatility, but it's not necessarily essential. But I like the guys that are kind of like under the radar, that kind of pop up and they weren't necessarily a top prospect. They come up and they're just impactful. They're leaders, scrappy. They want to get things done. I feel like those are the types of guys that gravitate to. Everyone loves the stars, but like it's like the Brendan Donovan to me is the guy I'm like, I'm never going to want to trade that guy because I guarantee you I'm going to value him more than you're going to value him.
Alec, who do you think fits that mold on the Blues right now?
It's tough because I don't know that any of the young players who've come up have fit that mold yet. They're still kind of figuring out their play style, but the Blues have a lot of like players they've acquired who fill more that role of like the unsung hero. Trying to think of a recent Cardinals example. I'm not sure, but on the Blues, I would say Brandon Saad is definitely one of those. He was one of our top goal scorers last year, and he's bounced around the league, but he's really found a home in St. Louis. He's kind of having a career resurgence, and it's just an offensive threat that kind of, as you said, goes under the radar. I would say for a while that was Braden Shen, although he seems to be sort of on the downturn of his career. But he was a very integral part of this Blues team for so many years. However, as I said, his play is starting to slow pretty noticeably. And then honestly, I think a couple guys on the defense, again, they're not young players. But I like that top our top pair D line as kind of both fitting that role. Colton Parayko, I think, does get more recognition. He is kind of a fan favorite, but league wide definitely is super underappreciated for how much he gives to the Blues night in and night out. Like where this team would have been without Colton Parayko in the last 5 to 7 years is a stark difference for the team that does have him. He has been offensively reliable, defensively a star, and even like at the peak of his powers in, I don't know, the mid 2010s or so, he was one of the best defensemen in the league that still somehow never got the recognition he deserved, which maybe is his nature, just kind of soft spoken. And then Nick Leddy is maybe pick for me selfishly, but I like Nick Leddy a lot. I think he's very similar to Colton Parayko in that way. Offers a little bit more offensively, slightly less defensively, but is still very, very good defensively. He is a recent signing. I believe we signed him coming into 2023, and he's got 2 years left, so doesn't have as much rapport with the team. But probably of those, I think Colton Parayko is the guy, although he is, as you said, like very much appreciated by Blues fans, just outside of the team, not so much.
Yeah.
Okay, you got some names. Josh's favorite Cardinals player was Canadian for a while, even though he doesn't want to admit it.
Oh, Tyler O'Neill. Yeah, that's true. I did love Tyler O'Neill, but
I think Colton Parayko is a good one. He also he led defensemen in goals last season for the Blues.
On the team.
Yeah, on the team. And I like to call him our third goalie because he led the entire league in blocked shots. So it's like a brick wall out there. I think
he's like 6'6", like built, and he's just like the most soft-spoken, gentle human being like you could ever meet.
That's awesome.
I'll also make I guess a plea or a bid for. I like Joel Hofer. He's our backup goalie.
That's a good one.
He performed really well last season. Was one of the sort of top. What was the number? Like top 20 goalies in goals saved above expected, something like that. So performed really well as a young goalie, and I think is a little underrated, mostly because of him being a backup in St. Louis, which is a smaller market than some of these other teams. But there's some names in there for you guys.
Sweet.
I think maybe you buy a jersey and go to a game. You have someone to cheer for. So there you go.
Yeah, I got a free jersey last night at the Blues thing.
Nice.
So. All right.
Very cool. So why don't we shift now to one of our last things that we'll do, and we're gonna have some fun here. We're gonna quiz Andrew and Josh on hockey knowledge, Blues knowledge, that kind of thing. Obviously, they're huge Cardinals fans, huge St. Louis sports fans, but that doesn't mean that they know hockey very well.
Is Josh a huge St. Louis sports fan? I don't know about that.
Oh wait, I forgot.
Okay, what team do I not root for in St. Louis?
Well, you glaze a certain.
I'm sorry.
Said Cubs.
Does the St. Louis have an NFL team?
No.
Yeah. So come on. But I was a Bears fan even when the Rams were in St. Louis. So
yeah. Ooh. So
Caleb Williams, let's go.
Go Pack go.
Ooh, it's getting.
Okay. So we got a Packer fan in here. We're not gonna say anything about that. All right.
It's just because Chicago and because Caleb Williams went to a Cubs game and wore a Cubs jersey that I don't like.
He also went to a White Sox game, so it evens out.
Did he wear a White Sox jersey?
I think so. I'll look into it.
Well, we're the team that hates the Chicago
maybe the Bears
team.
will do us a favor and lose 109 games this year.
Oh my god.
That would be impressive to say the least. Well, let's do. So what we'll do here is, I think we have enough time to ask each of you 2 questions. Is what we'll do per round. So each of you will actually get 6 questions. We'll do easy, medium, and hard levels, and then we'll keep score and see whichever which one of you knows more about hockey and gets, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 of these. So,
I'm going.
Alec, you want to go?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, Alec, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. We'll start with Andrew because he's on the left side here. Andrew, this is easy question number 1. All right. What is a power play?
So a power play is when Josh's gonna go.
He's stalling.
No. Power play is when one of your players commits a foul, and they have to go to the penalty box, and basically the other team has an extra player for like 5 minutes. I don't know how long.
I'll allow it. Yeah, I'll take that. All right, 1 point. 1 point for Andrew.
1 for 1. Already doing better than Paul Goldschmidt with runners in scoring position.
Brutal.
Okay, Josh. Alec, why don't you hit Josh with your first question?
Let's go with the simple one here. I'll save those for later, perhaps. Who led the Blues in goals last season?
Oh my gosh.
Why don't we make this multiple choice?
Yes.
Maybe.
Okay. All right. Your options are Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, Jake Neighbors.
Okay, I want to say Kyrou, but I'm gonna go Jake Neighbors.
Well, I wish it were so, but perhaps you should have trusted your gut. The answer is Jordan Kyrou had 31 goals to Neighbors 27.
Dang.
All right.
That's
1-0, Andrew.
That was harder than the one I got.
Okay. Josh, here's maybe an easier one for you.
Okay.
This one's 50-50. All right. You can do this.
All right.
Which team in a game wears white? Either the home team or the away team.
The away team.
Correct.
There you go.
Very good.
I feel like it's baseball's like the only one where
I was about to say the home team.
Do they do that in NBA?
Like some
I don't
teams,
really know NBA.
Not all.
Okay.
Well, actually, no. Actually, most of them do. It's like the Lakers don't. Yeah, it's like the opposite. So.
Sometimes soccer teams will wear like white. But anyways, Andrew, your next easy question brought to you by Alec.
Brought to you by Alec.
All right. Maybe that one isn't an easy one, so we'll do a different easy one. But we're gonna save that for sure. Well, you nailed that one. This is another multiple choice question, Blues centric. Who is the franchise leader in points? Your options are Brett Hull, Bernie Federko, or Gary Unger.
I've heard of none of these guys.
Well, you said after the last one, so it kind of sounded like you were taking a while to like figure out who the last person you're gonna say. So I feel like that one's wrong.
Or was I?
I'm gonna go with
mind game.
Does he even remember the first two names though?
No, I'm gonna go with the second one. I'm gonna go with B.
Bernie Federko?
Yeah.
That is correct.
Whatever. Get out of here.
Brett Hull is widely considered the greatest player in Blues history.
Like, I'm just gonna go with the second guy you said.
Brett Hull widely considered.
He hesitated too long. He was like,
Well,
I don't know. Who's that?
There's kind of only two real
Why does he look like Mike
options?
Does not.
Alec did go. Alec did say Brett Hull, Bernie Federko, or click, Gary Unger. Okay, so after the first round, it is 2-1. Andrew's winning. So let's move to the medium level.
Okay.
Let's see, Andrew. This one's for you. Can you name one type of NHL penalty?
Ooh. Like a type of like penalty, like shot, or a type of like penalty, or just like a foul.
Yeah, one type, like what someone could be called for. Yeah.
Aggressive, unnecessary roughness.
Can I steal?
I don't know.
Are we allowing steals or
offsides? I don't know. I'm just saying penalties that I know.
Unnecessary roughness is wrong. Josh, why don't we say you can steal? I think that would make it more fun.
Slashing.
Yes.
Got it.
Let's go.
Nice. Well done. All right, 2-2.
I added in rules to get back in the game.
Alec, what do you got for Josh's question? That Andrew can steal if Josh gets it wrong.
Who was the Blues Conn Smythe winner? And the Conn Smythe trophy is essentially the playoff MVP. So it is almost always given to the team that wins the Stanley Cup. So this is obviously the 2019 Conn Smythe winner. Who was the playoff MVP that year?
Should we make a multiple choice again, or do you think you got it, Josh?
I want to say it's the dude who's on the Panthers now. Why am I blanking his name?
Tarasenko, is that the guy you're thinking of?
I think so. I'm gonna say Tarasenko.
Very close, but it is Ryan O'Reilly, former captain.
O'Reilly.
He didn't even give me a chance to steal. Not that I would have gotten that.
Oh well.
No, you wouldn't have.
Whoops.
That's why part of why I didn't want multiple choice, because like this can make it easier for Andrew to steal. So I need to just try to guess.
That's fair. Okay, let's see. So now it's my question for. We'll do Josh again, and then Andrew. This is the one that will give you a chance to steal if he gets it wrong. All right. Let's see. Okay. Which team in the NHL has won the most Stanley Cups?
Okay, and this one's for me, right?
Yes.
It's the Maple Leafs. Oh no! Yeah, I already know. I saw your reaction. I have a different guess. If Andrew doesn't say, I know it won't count though.
Okay.
So
Andrew, do you have a guess?
I'm gonna say the Montreal Canadiens.
Did you look it up, Andrew?
No, I didn't. No, I knew it was one of the Canada teams.
Yeah,
you got it right. Bonus question: how many cups have they won?
12.
that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, really?
24.
Jeez,
Not
that was
close.
gonna be my guess. I knew I said the wrong Canada team, but it's okay.
All right.
But they also
think
did
the
the
Red Wings
Yankees
won.
thing where there were like
Yeah.
6 teams and they just had to beat one team in the playoffs and won like, yeah.
Interesting.
So what's the score now? Is it 3-2, Andrew? Is that what we're
I
at?
believe so.
Okay, Alec, your question for Andrew.
I've got a good one, and we'll make it multiple choice. So, Andrew, the NHL faced great adversity coming into the 2012-2013 season. Owners and players could not agree on labor regulations for the league and could not cooperate on a new CBA or collective bargaining agreement. The players took a stand for a sharing of revenue and better financial safety, and the owners wanted to change the terms on player contracts and free agency rules. Eventually, the two sides could not come to an agreement in time, and Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL, ordered the season would be put on lockdown. This would be the third lockdown under Gary Bettman as the commissioner of the NHL, the most of any commissioner by far. Who was the Blues' first-round pick that year? And your options are as follows. A, Brian Elliott. B, Colton Parayko. C, Vladimir Tarasenko. Or D, they didn't have one.
Oh,
Intrigue.
Wait, so if there's a Josh in the ML, and is there during the MLB lockout, was there a draft?
There was a draft this year.
No, like when
in 2013.
like 2022 or something. Oh, okay, so they might have lost their draft pick. Maybe they were like colluding. They hacked the Astros.
But you can trade. You can trade draft picks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the NHL you can trade picks like in any other sports league except MLB.
2013. I'm gonna say they didn't have one because that sounds more fun.
That's correct. They traded it to the Flames.
Well done. I saw Alec typing that up in the rundown. Like I was like typing all these short, like who won the most Stanley Cups, and then he hitting you with an essay question. It's too good.
great.
So is that 4-2 now?
Yeah,
4-2, Andrew.
I think so.
Need to
Wow.
come back.
Some solid performance. Is that all of our medium round questions? Are we on to the hard round?
I think we can move on to the hard questions.
Okay. Let's see. We'll start with Josh on this one. Let's see. Can you name 3 out of the 4 divisions in the NHL?
Okay. Central. Is that one of them?
I'm not going to tell you till the end. I'll give you 4 guesses.
Okay.
I'll give you 4 guesses, and then I'll tell you how many you got right.
Oh boy, because there's a Western Eastern Conference. So I'm gonna go the Central, the Pacific, the Atlantic, and gosh, I don't know. Southeast.
That was pretty good. You got 3 out of 4.
Let's go.
Nice. Yeah, Central, Pacific, and Atlantic. The 4th is the Metro or the Metropolitan.
Oh, I never would have gotten that. The Metro.
It's like it's out of left field entirely.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you,
Alec,
thank you.
what do you got for Andrew?
I don't know how to do anything other than multiple choice here. So I guess Andrew is just really good at multiple choice. So but the so in their first season in 1967, the Blues ended up playing in the Stanley Cup Finals. Who scored the first goal in franchise Stanley Cup Finals history? Was it Dickie Moore, Barclay Plager or Red Berenson?
I don't know who any of those
These are
guys
real
are.
1960s names.
Well, I'm gonna guess the last one because his name is
Red Berenson.
That sounds fun. Yeah,
that is incorrect.
Yes.
Are we allowing steal or just because now it's 50-50?
I'll let Andrew decide. Do you want to let me steal or no?
sure, why not?
Okay, I'll take the second guy.
Barclay Plager.
I'm pulling an Andrew here and just saying the second guy.
The second guy.
That is the correct answer. It is Barclay Plager. Dickie Moore scored the second goal in Blues Stanley Cup Finals history.
Okay.
As I'm sure you were well aware.
Yes, I would have told you that.
Josh, who hit the first home run in Cardinals World Series history? I couldn't tell you.
Babe Ruth.
Okay. Andrew, this is let's see. So the score is 4-4 now. This is your final question, Andrew, unless we let you steal Josh's last question. Okay. Final question. What does the term bar down mean?
Oh no. It's so when you drop your stick on the ice and the other person like trips over it.
Okay.
That's a foul on you and you have to go to the penalty box.
No. Bar down is a type of goal. That's when the puck hits the bottom of like the crossbar and falls in the goal. It's like a really cool type of goal you can get.
That's cool.
All right. 4-4 still. This is Josh's chance to
potentially for the win.
Hockey can end in ties, right?
That's true.
Oh, you go to overtime. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and
but you can get shootout 1 point, right? For like in the regular season. Okay.
Yeah.
So Andrew and I could split the point here.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
True. I guess you go to overtime. It's one person or you both earn a point technically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know. That's kind of melting my brain here.
Okay, I'll see if I can beat him.
Okay. How familiar would you say you are with the Stanley Cup winning team? Can you name a couple players? I mean, you have so far.
Yeah, I can name two for sure now.
And we've mentioned at least one of them. I'm going to trust in your abilities.
You got this.
So, Josh.
Yes.
We are currently witnessing the rise of many pop artists like Chappell Roan and Sabrina Carpenter. Their infectiously catchy melodies and simple yet relatable lyrics have captured the hearts and souls of many people across the world. While not referenced directly, it is safe to assume their work is inspired and referenced by many popular artists of the past. In 1982, American artist Laura Branigan released her newest hit, Gloria, to commercial success. After some time, the song may have been lost to history, but recently found its way back into the hearts of St. Louisians, serving as the anthem for the Blues Stanley Cup winning team. Who started the Gloria trend for the club? And there is one correct answer, but there are 5 more acceptable answers. So let's see what you got. I'm not going to give you a multiple choice.
Josh, it was
here.
DJ Brandon Crawford.
Yeah, I'll go with Vladimir Tarasenko.
Close, but unfortunately not.
No.
Andrew,
you want to take a stab at it?
I'm going to say O'Reilly. That's the other question.
Matthew Tkachuk.
Unfortunately not. I think we can do another one for a tiebreaker. The answer I was looking for, obviously, was the DJ at Jack's NYB Pub and Club in downtown Philly. But also acceptable would have been Alex Steen, Joel Edmondson, Robert Portizzo, Jaden Schwartz, or Robbie Fabry.
Unfortunately.
Come on, you guys. This is basic stuff here. All right, so we go to overtime. Overtime is sudden death. Okay. In the NHL, anyways. I'm not sure how that works here.
Wait, so whoever presses we have 2 buttons here. There's a Moe's Water button and there's a Happy Birthday Josh Moe's Water button. So if Josh presses his own button and I press my own button, so we're gonna do that.
Okay, so we're buzzing in. Andrew's pressing the normal Money
Okay.
Mo, and Josh is pressing
This
the
one.
Sure.
And Josh one.
But if someone clicks it, the question has to stop being asked. Like that's all the info they get.
That's true. Okay.
For
But
audio
don't click too
listeners,
quick,
we
Andrew.
promise those are different.
Yes, those are different visually. Yeah. Alec, do you have a question in mind, or you want me to use one of mine?
I mean, I could go back to the first one, but I think you could do one of yours, and if they don't get it, then we'll hit them with the other one.
Okay. In hockey terminology, what does apple mean? All right, that's
Happy
that's
birthday, Josh.
Apple. It's the puck.
It's a good guess, but no, that's wrong. Andrew,
Yeah.
you have to buzz in though.
Apple.
Apple. What does apple mean?
It's the ref.
No.
Okay.
An apple is an assist. All right, Alec, your question.
I'll do a different one. So 2011 was a good year for the Cardinals, right? Ended up making it all the way. Who led the team in shots in 2011 for the Blues?
Vladimir Tarasenko.
I believe he was not yet on the team.
I can't even. I'm gonna say like
Time Bloom.
Well, I know there's a player named Josh Jacobs for the Blues, so I'm gonna say it was him.
That'd been wild.
Close. It's he plays for the NFL, not the NHL.
No, isn't there one on the Blues?
Yeah, I thought there was a Blues player.
Josh Jacobs?
Yeah.
I'm looking this up.
Oh, I know more about the Blues than these guys do.
Joshua Jacobs, drafted by New Jersey. All I'm seeing is he played for the New Jersey Devils.
Oh, that's sad. Oh, he was signed as a free agent by St. Louis in 2023, but he must have not made anything.
Okay, yeah. Okay, let's hit him with an easier question here. What is a penalty kill?
Okay, I think mine went first.
I think it
changed.
cancels out I think it was Josh.
Okay, Josh.
A penalty kill. That's when the team that doesn't have the power play scores.
What do you think, Alec?
Well, I guess
I think it's incorrect.
Yeah, never mind. I won't say what I was gonna say.
Andrew, do you have a counter?
Chance to steal the win.
The other team on a power play commits a foul and they lose the power play.
No. Okay. Penalty kill is sort of the other team. While one team is on power play, the other team is on penalty kill. So you're trying to kill the penalty time while you're a man down. All right. What do you got, Alec?
I think I might audible here. And
what is a goal?
Let's see. Name a goalie who is top 5 in franchise wins. Andrew for the win. That's correct. He is 3rd all time. That is within the top 5 and 6 away from first place.
So all right.
He will be number 1.
So Andrew comes away with 2 points for the win
after an arduous hard round.
Yeah, it went to like triple overtime. But Josh, don't worry.
I mean, those really weren't that difficult. I don't know what was the issue.
Josh, you still get the overtime loss point, so don't worry. Still moving up in the standings.
Thank you. All
right. Well, this was a lot of fun. Hopefully the Blues and Cardinals are both on the right track to returning to contention. If you enjoyed the Blues content, you can find Note News, as we've mentioned, on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. And as always, we are on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So if you want to subscribe or rate us wherever you listen, we really appreciate that. Dealing the Cards, as we mentioned, is also on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Dealing the Cards is spelled without the G, by the way. Dealing the Cards. And they're also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. So go check out all of their great Cardinals content. Josh, Andrew, thanks for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks.
All right, we'll see you next time on Note News. And as always, let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.
Thanks, Dealing the Cards.